So that helps to bind the toxins, right? It creates more bulk. But what if, and definitely you should see better bowel movement and more often, but what if there is the impaction, it's really stuck like for 10 years or 20 years and it's just not happening, right? You need a little bit more than just a fiber at that point. You're going to need some kind of cleanse. And you know, you don't, and again, if you were to go to your medical doctor for your annual checkup and you know, you were given the blood work and then the heart check and then you'd be asked about your bowel movements and you're being prescribed a colon cleanse, that would really be beautiful. That would be health, you know, because we really are supposed to do a cleanse at least once a year. At least once a year because of how we live and, you know, what we eat and how our guts are. And there are different kinds of cleanses, and you always want to do the colon cleanse before you do the liver cleanse. You can do them at the same time. But the best cleanses are, if you go online, there's so much information, you know, and so the best cleanses are those that contain something to help to move the bowel, right? So it creates the peristalsis, and then something that actually binds the toxins. So it's not just fiber, it is fiber, but it also is going to have something like apopectin or bentonite clay or sometimes activated charcoal, which will bind the extra toxins and move them out. Because you don't want the toxins being, the problem is when they start getting reabsorbed, that's what's happening with the illness, and the chronic problem is where the toxins are reabsorbed. So when you start eliminating, you got to do that. And how do you make sure that you do the most effective possible? So there are several ways to do it. You can do a really pristine diet, which is you know, meat-free and dairy-free and sugar-free, and you do mostly vegetables. Or you can do juicing, fresh vegetable juicing together with that. Or you can do a fasting. I don't really necessarily am a big promoter of fasting because you need the nutrients in. So what needs to happen, if you do one of those two, you're getting the nutrients in, either through the vegetables or through the juices, and then you have something to bind the toxins, and it binds it several times a day. And you know, you're taking the nutrients and then you're binding the toxins. That's always very important. And then I have a beautiful guest here today, who is a colon hydrotherapist. She does a really great, she has a special system that's an open system, and very often, or not often, but sometimes you need some extra help, especially in lots of toxicity, lots of chronic illness. So the colon hydrotherapy, which, do you want to just say a few words about that, Dee?
How many of you have had a colonic, or no? Not that many. A lot of people are scared of it. It's not scary. It's like taking, you know, how many of you have brushed your teeth today? Maybe even taken a shower. It's taking a shower on the inside, and it does help to get into all these pockets. And one thing I was going to add, because Dr. Katka forgot, this little thing right here. What's this?
Appendix.
An appendix. Guess what? It's not a vestigial organ. Like the Creator didn't screw up and just stuck something in there for the doctor to come and take out. It's part of our immune system, and a lot of bacteria. This is where the small intestine enters, and the cecum is down here, and that's where a lot of bacteria and things get stuck, and that's why the appendix gets inflamed. And so a colonic, as opposed to enema will only get up to about here. A colonic in a 35-minute period will cleanse the entire colon all the way down to the cecum. But it will not get the small intestine. So the colon is as long as you are tall, so 5 to 6 feet. The small intestine is, like Dr. Katka said, 23 feet. So you do, if you're going to do a cleanse, you do need to be taking some fiber and something to push through and to absorb the toxins. But the reason a colonic is so powerful, especially when you're doing a cleanse, is because as you're releasing all these toxins, you don't want them to keep recirculating, because that's when people get what are called healing crises. They'll have headaches, they'll feel really bad. So if you're doing a cleanse and doing colonics at the same time, you're releasing the toxins, and you're just going to feel so much better. And the one thing that Western doctors will say is, well, what about the good bacteria? I mean, maybe you've heard that, oh, you shouldn't have a colonic because you'll take out the good bacteria. Well, if they're worried about the good bacteria, first of all, I'd say, what about the antibiotics that you're prescribing and the Prilosec, the antacids, but that's another story. Basically, if you are bloated, if you're gassy, if you're feeling bad, then the bad bacteria is taken over. So I thought of this analogy. It's like if I went to the hairdresser and said, could you just color the gray or maybe just trim the split ends, but not the good hair? I mean, you know, we have to rinse the bad bacteria, the yeast, everything out, cleanse it out, and then you put back in with your probiotics, you put back in the good bacteria to establish a healthy intestinal flora. And the nice thing about having a colonic, and it's like kind of, people get kind of weird, but there's a viewing tube, and when there's something psychological about when you see what's coming out and you feel that release, you, I believe, are more conscious about what goes in. You think, okay, I just paid this money, I just had this whole intestinal tract come out, I've taken my probiotics. When you go to shop, you're going to think, you know, you might choose the organic, healthy food versus going back to McDonald's and putting a bunch more junk in and starting it all over. So it's just an amazing, and I just, I've been a personal trainer for years. I have a degree in biology. I also have a degree in metaphysics. And when I had my colonic, the first one, something energetic, when Dr. Katka started talking about energetics, something shifted. And I just knew this was the missing link for me, the mind-body-spirit connection. And it was when I read Edgar Casey's book on colon care, which is a really good one, he described it as a colonic will line your chakras and expand your aura. And that's personally what happened to me. I had more energy. I thought it was like I'd been at Starbucks and had 5 espressos, but with no side effects. I was running around like, whoa, I've got to share this. I've got to share this. I call my husband, guess what I'm going to do? And he's like, great. You know, I have a good one this time. So it's a really beautiful thing. The system I use is very gentle. It's nothing to be afraid of, and it really will make you feel so, so much better. So thank you, and if you have any questions, I can stay after, or please feel free to call.
Forget the cakes. But really, there is, in a way,
Not
it's
really.
What?
I thought you had a glow.
Right? Right? My date with the colonic. It actually is called angel therapy, the colonic that she has, and it's a little bit different. It's more gentle. It's more where you're more in control, more in power. So in a way, it's kind of neat. It's a good experience. So so for a really bigger impact, something like colonic, maybe you wanting to create some magical health fast. Colonic will be the piece. If you were at my lecture on liver, I was sharing with you about this 19-year-old who. This beautiful, you know, strong 19-year-old, she was so sick, like few months ago, like she started getting sick and she had migraines, she was fatigued, she had constipation, she couldn't sleep, she was depressed, she was anxious, like everything you can think of, and it was all due to toxicity and liver overload. And we started some powerful cleansing, we started the IVs, and she started with colonics, because at that point, you know, it's like, let's get on it right away, right? And within days, she was better, like really, in 2 weeks. Her 10 out of 10 symptoms all went to 0 to 2 out of 10. So I do want you to know that at this point, I really believe that healing happens underneath the symptoms. You know, the symptoms and my path from traditional medicine to naturopathic medicine, and then even looking more at the energetics, is really there is this big picture underneath. So every time you have symptoms, it's your body talking to you and saying, you know, these headaches, they mean something. These migraines, they mean something. Yes, you know, if you need to take the pill to survive the day, take the pill. But you want to be healthy, go and find somebody that can help you look at the underlying piece. And I'll be happy and honored to help you if you want to. I am accepting new clients. Dee can help you. Karen also over there, she is a nutritionist, and she has an amazing story of healing her own illness, and she's happy for me to share. But she actually was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, right, Karen? And she is free of that disease. And this is really big, because we're taught in our world, in our society, like you have chronic illness, you'll have this forever. There's no cure. So I really want you to know that this is more than possible. That's the truth.
Hi, my name is Karen. I'm a holistic nutritionist, and I was diagnosed with Crohn's when I was 19 years old. I was just going into college. I suffered through my entire childhood with digestive problems, but back then they didn't even know what Crohn's was. It was mostly ulcerative colitis, so nobody ever checked for it. I personally believe that I probably was celiac. Have you heard of celiac? That's probably what I was, and nobody ever tested for it. So I spent most of my college years in the hospital, and it was really interesting because I had a couple of nasty teachers, and they actually tried to fail me, but they couldn't fail me because I was couriering my stuff into the professors, so there was no way they were going to take my degree away from me. And I would go, in and out of remission, but I went the medical route the entire way. I didn't know anything about nutritionists or naturopaths. As far as I was concerned, they were a bunch of woo-woo, hippie-shaking-tambourine type of people, and I totally was not into that. So I had perianal abscesses, and I've had surgeries. I've had my small intestine taken out, and I just strongly believed in the medical profession to the point that I was trying to get on trials for drugs that weren't even available yet, and I'm from Canada, so Remicade wasn't even available in Canada, and I was trying so hard, and I was ticked because they were actually allowing inmates in the United States to go on this, and here's me, this wounded sick person who really could use it. Well, I had my second bowel resection. I had a daughter, and I was skin and bones and literally wanted to die. I didn't want to live, and I was feeling very guilty because I couldn't be a mother, and it's really hard to talk about this. This is the first time I've actually talked about it in front of anybody, so you have to excuse me, but I seriously wanted to die. I couldn't be a mother, and I felt so worthless. And you go to the doctors and you walk in, your butt is up on a pedestal, literally, and in walks 20 male interns. You are a gerbil. And I got tired of it. I got so tired of it, but I didn't know what to do. So, of course, not believing in anything, obviously I was putting some form of intention out there, and two people who didn't know each other recommended the same naturopathic doctor. And I thought, what the heck, I'm going to go. I mean, I've had everything imaginable done to me. What could they possibly do? Well, in 3 months, I was in remission, and I was shocked. I wasn't wearing diapers to work anymore. My hair stopped falling out, and I was so amazed that I actually went into nutrition. And then from there, everything just started to fall into place. I started to feel good, and I started to realize that there was more to this, that there was definitely more to this. And every time I asked, more would come, more would come, more would come, and I would heal, and I would heal. But the interesting part is, I'm very, very stubborn, because now I'm becoming that woo-woo, hippie-shaking-tambourine person. And I just wasn't ready for that. So I would regress, and then I would get sick again. So in the 10 years in that time, I ended up becoming, I was a nutritionist at that point, and life was good. I was off of medications, but there was one thing I hadn't dealt with. I had healed. I used acupuncture. I had the most amazing naturopathic doctor. She was a chiropractor, naturopathic, and acupuncturist all in one. Like, I had no idea how lucky I was to have somebody like that. And I worked with her for 5 years, and life was good. And then when I had my second resection, the doctor said to me, just go ahead, eat whatever you want. So my favorite thing to eat was popcorn. Nobody told me, and you'd think that the doctor would tell you. If you take it down to a biological level, your cells need certain nutrients. So even if you remove a part and you're not bringing the nutrients back up, then how can you survive, right? You can't. And that was the missing piece, is that I didn't do the nutrient part. So I brought all the nutrients in, and I got so well, and then all of a sudden I was hit with this emotional stuff like you wouldn't believe, and I had all this emotional baggage literally inside of me, it was like a big monkey brain, and I needed to get it out, and I didn't know how to get it out. So I ended up back in the hospital with my I had a bowel obstruction, had that part of my ileum removed again, so the whole ileum's now gone, and all the emotions were gone. All the crap, literally, that I had been dealing with was gone. And then I realized there was this huge emotional component to us. And that it's not just the physical ailment, but it's the emotional stuff that we're not dealing with that allows for the disease. And I really believe I'm grateful and blessed to this day for having the disease, because you know what disease means? It's your body way of saying, I need to be number one. I need to take care of me. You need to deal with me right now. It's really amazing. So then I moved from Canada to the United States, and I thought, how cool is this? I don't ever have to talk about Crohn's again. Nobody knows me here. I can start over. I mean, I could be a rock star and nobody would know, right? Seriously. Not so. I didn't take into account that I wasn't going to be ballroom dancing, I wasn't going to be a golfer, and I wasn't going to be, you know, out on stages everywhere. So my life crumbled. But while it was crumbling, I didn't realize that all this emotional stuff was coming up, and I got really stressed out. My business wasn't going well. And this is really interesting. For 6 months, everything in my life was a pain in the ass. My cats, my children, my life, my career, and those were the words that came out of my mouth. You're all a pain in the ass. In December, guess what I got? The biggest pain in my ass I have ever had. I ended up with an abscess that fistulaed through the vaginal wall, and I ended up with a temporary colostomy. Then, after I had the temporary colostomy and healed, of course, because I knew what to do to heal from that, they decided they weren't going to reverse it because I have Crohn's. I wasn't on medications for Crohn's. There wasn't enough of Crohn's to give me medications, but they weren't going to reverse it. So the only way that they were going to reverse this is if I went to a gastroenterologist and he okayed it. I went into a huge depression. I wasn't strong enough to fight. I mean, now I'm dealing with the medical profession again, right? I had just an ounce, an iota of strength, and I walked in and I just basically memorized what I was going to say. I was not going on drugs, this is how it's going to go. And he bullied me into saying that I had to take drugs. I said, fine, I'll take your drugs, reverse this thing, I need to get on with my life. He says, Karen, you need to be on these drugs the rest of your life. I go, that's it, game off. And I actually said, tell you what, I'm going to have a colonoscopy in 4 months. And if I have Crohn's, I'll take your drugs and you reverse this. If I don't have Crohn's disease, reverse this damn thing and leave me alone. He says, why 4 months? I said, well, I just spent 2 years having surgeries. You and I both know that I probably shouldn't even be standing right now, so give me time. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? And I started talking about all the different things that I was going to do, and it was just so over his head that he literally looked intimidated. And it gave me that little ounce of strength that, hey, I think I can do this. I will tell you, I've had many surgeries, I've been in and out of hospitals, and I was never more nervous than I was the day that I went in for my colonoscopy. In fact, the best part is I had decided on a scale of 1 to 10. So if I went in and I still had Crohn's and it was between 1 and 4, that meant I was healing. If it's more than that, then what I'm doing is not working and forget it. So I go in, they put me out on these drugs I've never heard of before. The anesthesiologist didn't show up and it was just a mess. I'm out of it. Husband's there, and all of a sudden I can hear them talking, and he says, well, I'm not sure, and I can hear him. I go, what is it on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 to 10. He goes, my husband goes, Karen, shut up. I said, I need to know, and I'm out of it. You got to understand I'm out of it. He goes, the doctor goes, Karen, it's a 4. And I go, I'm healing, and I passed out. Turned out the next day what they were talking about was a little bit of irritation because I had taken too much of the stuff to make sure I was cleaned out. But guess what? There wasn't. His paper, I have it at home. No evidence of Crohn's disease, no evidence of colitis, no evidence of cancer, polyps, or inflammation. It was the healthiest bowel he had ever seen in his life. Pathology report came back the same. How did I do it? By everything that Dr. Keck is talking about. We are one energy mass. You can bring yourself physically to health, but you have to deal with the underlying cause at all costs. You have to in order to have that balance and that homeostasis. And my daughter is now 18 years old and she just started college.